So, learners, here we are in the third part of chapter number 1 of Basics of Economics. Now, in the previous chapter, if you remember, we have learned about the difference between microeconomics and macroeconomics. Now, when we talk of microeconomics, it's talking about individual level, smaller level, and then we are talking of macroeconomics, which is speaking of a bigger picture, a larger picture of the economy of the entire nation, probably in terms of national income, GDP, and so on, right? So, we are going to talk of certain concepts which are connected to this macroeconomics in this particular part of the chapter, right? Now, in case of the definition, if you remember, we have learned about the definition of macroeconomics in the previous part when Kenneth Boulding had defined the macroeconomics as it does not deal with individual quantities as such, but it is dealing with aggregates of these individual quantities. So, if we talk of income, we are not talking of individual income this time, we are talking of national income, right? We are not talking of individual prices, but we are talking of general prices. This is how Kenneth Boulding had actually defined the macroeconomics. Now, let's move forward and understand the different concepts which are connected to macroeconomics. The first concept which is connected to macroeconomics is national income. Now, what is this national income? Suppose we are talking of, let's say, India. India has a huge population. Now, each person is working, or there are many people who are working, let's say, and each person is of these is having some amount of income. Now, what happens if we want to know what is the entire earnings of India, right? That time, each person's income is added together, and then what we get is called as India's income, or in other words, we talk of in economic terms, we say it is national income. So, what is the total income of India? If we talk about this on a smaller scale, if say a family of five people, let's say, three people are elders, two people are children. So all three of them are working and earning. Each one of them earns 50,000 rupees per month. So what is the total income of the family? You would say 50,000 plus 50,000 plus 50,000. It becomes 1,50,000, correct? So all these three people together, the family income will be 1,50,000. Now, this, if we grow and take on a larger scale, on a national scale, what we get is the national income. So, each person who is working, who is earning, getting some income, all the incomes clubbed together will become the income of the country, and it is called as national income. And what it does, it uses this particular value to actually understand how the country is performing and what is the total amount of goods and services in terms of valuation that the country is actually selling off in that particular year. Second macroeconomic term, which we also use in microeconomics, is what we call a saving. What is a saving? Everybody of you listening to this particular video must have heard this term saving, isn't it? Even if you're talking of a simple thing like a cake on the plate, and after a birthday party, the cake is cut and distributed, you say, my sister is not here, and I just want to save this portion of the cake. I want to put aside this cake for her, and I'll keep it in the fridge. When she comes back, she will eat it, right? So, what are you doing? You're keeping aside some part of that cake for something better, or some other purpose, we could say, something which you have in your mind, you're keeping it aside for, correct? So, this is what we call as savings. Same thing you do as savings in terms of your income. When you get salary, when you get profits from the business, what happens? You have earned something, you have got something in your hand, but now you don't want to spend everything, isn't it? So what do you do? Part of it you remove aside and keep aside, and that is what is called as savings. Now what do you do with this saving? right? Some people may use this saving for some future expenditure, like you are saving for a house. So every year you put aside money and then you buy a house. Or some people may just use this particular saving for the purpose of investment. So I put aside some money and this money I put in some investment, which again further gives me some income in the form of returns like interest, dividends, whatever. Correct? So this is saving as a definition. It is mainly done to satisfy some future needs by foregoing my current needs. So I may want to eat the cake, but I am not going to eat it because I want to use it for the purpose of sharing it with my sister. That's how things work. So I'm foregoing my current need and using it for something else, right? Or in other words, if I want to eat this particular cake at night when I feel hungry again, so I save that aside, I don't consume it now, and this is something from my current usage. I'm foregoing this and saving, putting it aside. Same thing happens with money. I have got money in hand. I could easily go out and party, enjoy, or buy some clothes or do something with that money which I have extra. But I don't do it. What do? I have some purpose in my mind. I want to buy a house. So I say every year I'm going to set aside this part of my earnings. I'm going to forego my parties, maybe my excessive expenditures or some luxurious things which I'm going to buy right now, something lavish which I'm going to spend on. I'm going to forego that. And for what purpose? For purpose of buying a house. So this is what is the meaning of saving. Hope that is clear. So let's proceed to the next term which we are going to learn in macroeconomics, which is called as investment. Okay, now the entire nation is also investing, is putting aside some money. Now, if you look at certain announcements which government makes, government says that, okay, we are going to invest this time in infrastructure. What is this invest? Why are we calling it invest? Investment is when that particular amount is going to give you further returns, right? Savings not necessarily gives you returns. So I keep like 1 lakh rupees in my cupboard, it's not going to give me any extra funds, money, right? But if I put that money, that extra money into a fixed deposit or into a mutual fund or any other investment, as we call it, it is called as investment because the FD, the fixed deposit, the mutual fund is going to give me returns. So when I put aside the money into a specific asset, something which is going to give me further returns, then I call it as investment. Correct? Till that time, it can also be called as savings. When it is put into a return giving security, return giving asset, that time it becomes investment, right? Hope that this difference is clear. What is saving, what is investment, right? Another thing you have to remember is investment need not always be in shares, securities, fixed deposit. It can also be in business. So if I put my money into a particular business in machinery, in plant, in equipment, this is going to produce goods which when sold will give me profits, will give me returns. Correct? So investment can be on a very large scale, can be on my own individual scale also, and can be on a national scale also, like building, constructing of roads, dams, canals, maybe trains, or whatever the case is, right? So all this combined together will help industries grow, flourish, and give returns in the form of taxes to the government, right? So this is investment for the government. Got it? Another concept in macroeconomics which you're going to learn is trade cycles. So there are trade cycles which go on. What is this trade cycle basically? When we talk of trade cycle, there are ups and downs that happen in the overall economic activity. Sometimes you may have heard that the production of this particular country has gone down, the gross domestic product has gone down or has gone up, right? The whole country is suffering inflationary pressures, or a particular country is facing some low economic activity, low manufacturing activity. What is all this? This is something which we call as trade cycle. There are ups and downs. So what is a cycle? Trade cycle means there will be constantly some ups and downs in the economy or economic activity. Like maybe a company, if you're talking of a cold drink manufacturing company, they will have an upward trend, isn't it? More manufacturing when we talk of summer season. But in winters, this may have a slowdown. Cold drinks may not be sold so much, and so manufacturing activity will slow down. This is what we call as a cycle which goes on, a production cycle which goes on in an industry. On the same basis, if we talk of a nation, there will be some or the other trade cycle which goes on in that nation. There will be ups and downs in the economic activity of that entire nation. And this can lead to a constant rise in prices. If that is happening, then it is inflationary trend. And if there is a constant downward trend in the price levels, then this can also be a part of deflation, or it can be considered as another type of economic activity which is going on, which is bringing the prices down. And finally, we have two more terms for understanding in macroeconomics. One is what we call as economic growth. Now, often we hear that the countries like the developed countries which we have like USA and certain European countries, where we say they have a huge economic growth, even China for that matter, right? We say Chinese economy is growing, there is a lot of economic growth. Indian economy is having a lot of growth. What is this? It means there is a greater national income. There is a growth in the goods and services which are being sold out, which are being circulated in that particular economy in that particular time period. So, for a very long period, if this keeps continuing, then we say there is a good economic growth, right? So, more production is happening, more sales is happening, more money is coming into the country, then there is good economic growth. And it should be constant. In one year, you have a huge jump of, you can say, economic activity, but the next year it's again a flat thing. Third year also it is going on flat, then it's of no use. So economic growth should be constant. And obviously, it should be quantitative, quantifiable, right? It should be measurable. You cannot just say, okay, vague thing that, okay, there is a increase in economic activity. No, numbers should prove it, correct? And finally, we talk of a macroeconomic term which is called as economic development. Now, what is economic development? Overall, if you see the country has, you can say, infrastructure, it has industries, it has people who are consuming, the quality of manpower that is there in that particular country, the skills people have, all this is something which we talk of as economic development. It is progressive change, or there is what we call as progressive changes in certain variables which determine well-being of people. Okay, how well the people can are living, the standards of living. And in general, we are not talking of few people who are having good standards of living. It is an overall standard of living of that country. If it is having a good development in the form of, you can say, health, education, infrastructure, companies coming up, a production cycle which is stable, and so on, then we can say that there is economic development. Money wise, the country is growing, health care is provided, education is provided, and so on. So, economic development helps the overall development of the country, and it gives benefits on individual levels also. And of course, this too needs to be quantified. So, hope these terms of macroeconomics are clear to you. And so, this chapter 1, which is having these parts, ends here with the understanding of the basic terminologies which we use in economics. Now, the next chapter, which is a very important and interesting chapter, which we are going to talk of, is money. The name of that chapter is money, and it is connected to money, and it is connected to how different things are, economics and money, how it is connected, how money came into formation, and so on. There are many interesting things which we are going to learn about money in the next chapter. So see you in the next chapter, chapter number 2 of Basics of Economics.